Hi, welcome to Be the Victor. Got another podcast for you guys, and today is about why I suck at traveling. Um, Recently, I just came back from a long 6 month trip in Europe with my family, where we spent the whole time camping in tents and caravanning. So, first, if you didn't already know a little bit about me, I have five kids: 17, 16, 13, 8, and 6. My wife and I are busy, and we came up with a scheme about 2 years ago to live full time out of our RV and travel the world. And we just came back from our long trip through Europe. And some of the stats on that: we drove 10,000 miles in 6 months. We visited 15 different countries with nothing more than a backpack on each of our backs. We stayed about €150 a day, which for 7 people was quite an accomplishment for us. And we took two surfboards, climbing gear, and I brought my gi, which I didn't use often enough. But that was our trip. And I'm a pretty simple guy. I didn't have much traveling in my past. Before I met Robin, I never even camped really. My first plane ride wasn't until I was 18 on a wrestling tournament to Vegas. So that was the extent of my traveling. So, as you can imagine, it was quite a shock when we started doing a little bit of traveling, but I'll get back to that in a moment. Most of you should already know the huge health benefits associated with traveling. They're pretty amazing. You get better mental health as well as physical health. All your body systems seem to respond and improve well. Now, whether you're traveling like we did or a resortist, where you're going on a vacation to week to Hawaii, most people decompress and have an amazing physical and mental transformation if they take vacations. And that's what we're here to talk about today, and give you a few hacks on how to figure out how to travel with your family. About halfway through our trip, I was hurting pretty bad. I was tired, sore, my sleep was off, my energy was low. Halfway through, I looked at my wife and I said, "You know what, Robin? This trip might kill me." And I was being completely serious because I was in a position where I wasn't thriving. I realized I sucked at traveling, but what was my hangup? Why couldn't I enjoy myself? It was a huge wake up call because the reality was I was used to flexing all sorts of muscles in the gym, working out hard, training hard for jujitsu. Very, very normal. Started off in my youth with wrestling, so I really knew how to grind and train very hard. But I was flexing some muscles that were really not had never gotten any attention, and so I had to grow. I generally grew up with a natural fear of the outside world, not having traveled very much. Whether that was from my parents or from me, who knows? But I generally had that. So I carried that non trusting nature basically with me abroad on this trip. And it's kind of hard to feel like you have to protect your pack at all moments of the day. You really can't do that. And it pushed me to the edge of my comfort zone without pushing my comfort zone, I wouldn't have grown as a person, and I can tell you that now, that traveling does that. To many of us, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is something you don't really want to do. You're happy, you're comfortable. Why? But I'm here to tell you that if you push outside your comfort zone, you're going to get some amazing things to happen. Number one, you're going to grow as a person. Number two, you're going to find out what you like and what you don't like. You got to try it all so you know what you like and what you don't like. And number three, find out what makes you tick or your why. And I'm a big proponent of figuring out that, and so is Robin. Um, Now back to the title. I sucked at traveling because I was too busy always sacrificing for my family or everyone else, and all the time and what they wanted. One of my best qualities is that self-sacrificing nature that I have. But in the end, I was undoing myself as we traveled. But it taught me how to help others who are trying to do the same thing or travel with their families, whether it's short term or long term, figuring out how to get them to thrive during their vacation. When I was home, things were different. I had my time allotted a lot better. I had my mat time, my weight training time. I had time to run. I had all my food dialed in, exactly what I needed, when I needed it. I knew where to pick it up. And so, what it comes down to, guys, is when you're going to travel, it's about some self-care. Now, even if you're not a huge proponent of exercise, you got to do some exercise every day, regardless of where you are. It's going to make you feel better and clear your head so you can travel with your family. Before you go out on your trip, scout out the popular food in the area so you know how to fulfill your dietary needs. Now, it sounds weird, but in many places that we went to, cheese, bread, and wine, which are amazing, some of the places we were, the cheese, bread, and wine were so amazing. I wish I could thrive on that food, but it just doesn't cut it for me. I'm generally kind of gluten sensitive, and I enjoy bread, but it just doesn't do much for me, meaning I can eat tons of it and still not feel satiated. So regardless of the language in which you're traveling, learn the language enough to know how to ask where the butcher is. And that's what I ended up doing halfway through our trip, is trying to figure out where the nearest butcher was and making really close friends with them so I could get really good cuts of meat while we were traveling. And traveling through France and Spain, you can get some really good meat. You just got to go find it out. You got to go seek it out. Now, the other thing that was one of my biggest hacks throughout this entire trip was eggs. You can get eggs relatively cheap everywhere in the world, and you can find them really well sourced, which means they're all natural, organic, free range from free range chickens. They're eating the right things. The next thing you need to make sure you guys do is that you're involved in the travel plans. Don't be like me. I'm horrible about this. I generally was, yeah, I'll go wherever you want, honey. I knew I didn't like big cities, and mostly because they cost a lot of money. And with a big family, I would tell my kids, we got to get out of Paris. My wallet is hurting. And if anyone's been to Paris, you know what I'm talking about. Can you imagine going through a family of 7, trying to feed them with moderate means through Paris? We ended up eating before, snacking while we were going through, and then coming back and having a nice big meal at our caravan, or what Europeans call caravan, we call an RV. So be involved in your plans. It's going to help. And actually, your wife will appreciate it a lot. If you take part in the travel plans, it really makes it a lot easier and will drop your travel anxiety. Oftentimes, particularly when I remember traveling through Wales, I was questioning, are you sure we're going to the right place? Is this a thing? It was actually an ongoing thing. Oftentimes when I'm traveling with my family, we're off the beaten path, and then we get there and there's many people doing the same thing. This is a thing. So if you help in the planning, even if you're not overly involved, it'll reduce your travel anxiety and actually increase your enjoyment. Now, also finding a pace of travel that works is incredibly essential for feeling good while you travel. My wife can really go in and out of one area in one day. That just doesn't cut it. For me, it takes me at least a few days in one area to get comfortable, get my bearings, and then relax and get to know the people, the locals in the area. Now, that never worked for me, and so Robin and I had to come up with a few times she didn't really want to stop and wait an extra day. So I'd say, okay, that's fine. We'll stop when we get to this place. We'll spend a few more days in this other area, and particularly like Hossegor, where we ended up falling in love with and really enjoying it, partially due to a little surf accident that I had. But we'll get to that in another podcast. So guys, that's just a few ideas on how to help you travel with a family and be successful. Hopefully you can use some of those and apply that to your next trip, and you can really get the most out of your trip and feel better. If you need any ideas, my wife actually wrote an amazing book called 1,000 Miles of Memories, which basically highlights trips for you. So it takes some of that guesswork out. And you can find that on our Nomads with a Purpose website. Thanks a lot, guys.